Hi guys, I would like to continue my discussion from my other video about survivors. This is part 2 of my video, Survivors of the NKT, Who Are They? And in the first video, I expressed a point of view from the survivors' point of view, like from the point of view of the people who have left NKT. And today I would like to present the point of view of the people who have not left the NKT, who are still involved in the organization, and see what they think about who the survivors are. Okay, and this is actually a question that a lot of members kind of always, sort of wonder about. I've seen a lot of posts about this over the years on the different NKT forums. And a few months ago, there was a post up on the new Kadampa Tradition group, an anonymous poster, and I find that actually interesting that they wouldn't give their names, but an anonymous poster asked the question, and I quote, "Why do people who become unhappy with this tradition and leave call themselves survivors?" And he put the words into quotation marks. "I've noticed this over the years. They leave and then go on to be very critical of their formal Sangha, using terms like cult, spirit worship, and brainwashing. Perhaps someone can shed some light on this. Thank you in advance." And so this is the post. This was up on May 11th this year, 2024. There are 89 comments on this post. So 89 people have taken to answer this question. So let's see what comes out of all of these responses. First off, I would like to say that among these 89 responses, there isn't one. I couldn't find one who would have acknowledged that maybe some of the survivors have some reason to be dissatisfied with their experience, resentful of the group, or whatever other negative emotions they feel after they left the group or they have been removed from the group. Not one person. There is actually one comment, somebody saying, well, people make mistakes and that's it. But aside from that one person, there isn't one comment among these 89 comments who would at least partially recognize the fact that there may be some reason why these people have suffered, and this reason might be found in the new Kadampa tradition itself and not in them. So let's see some of the interesting answers. So one of the first responders is Zach Wyman. Zach Wyman has been in the tradition for a very long time, and he's saying there is a politically motivated hate group known as Kadampa survivors, mainly led by followers of the Dalai Lama. They bathe in their own anger and malice and increase these delusions' power in all they hold influence over. It's their mission to destroy Geshe-la's works and the NKT as an organization. So basically, I'm not going to go on here what he's saying, but this is a very common trope in the NKT. The people who call themselves survivors or group of the exposing group on Facebook, they are politically motivated. They are fans of the Dalai Lama, and obviously that is the reason why they actually want to destroy the NKT. Another person is saying here, possibly the same type of personalities that call people trolls who answer to their social media posts in a way that disagrees with their posts. It's a strange old word. So basically this NKT practitioner considers anybody who has had a bad experience about the NKT and speaks up about it. We are just obviously trolls, and that's it, very simple. Another common trope is represented here by Khalsang Sanglam. Some also have mental health issues, and some did things they should not have done and maybe was asked to move out from the Sangha community. Anger and blaming others is unfortunately a very common way to express this kind of frustration. So obviously people who call themselves survivors, or people who speak up about problems in the NKT, are obviously mentally ill. They have mental issues, they are unstable, they must have done something to deserve to have been removed, and so now they are angry. And this is actually a very common trope. Oh, you are just so angry. You want to destroy our organization, and you have mental issues, mental problems, and you need help and get yourself cured. Kelsang Pakpa mentions enemies. He says even Buddha had enemies. It's sad, but it's to be expected because this is samsara. So obviously we are enemies of the new Kadampa tradition. Okay, so what about that nuclear bomb that destroys our enemies? So where is that bomb? I don't see. It's not coming towards us at all. Then there is this guy who puts up the new KadampaTruth.org website, says this may help, and a little heart. The website is not working at the moment. I have no idea what's going on. It has just been overhauled a couple of months ago. It's been put up on the various NKT forums as something extremely wonderful, something that truly explains all the problems and clears the muddy waters around the NKT. But now this website is down. It's impossible to get into it, to reach it. So I don't know what that means exactly. There is this other person there who's saying it's hard to train your mind, samsara hard to shift, so they give up with anger. So again, we are angry, we couldn't succeed in our practice, we couldn't shift samsara. Obviously, people in the NKT are extremely good at shifting samsara and clearing up their minds and not being angry, and we have just completely failed, and that is the real problem here. So there is this one NKT practitioner who actually calls survivors Maras. Okay, survivors are Maras. She says, because they are Maras and not ready to accept their own minds, being delusional, and so want to test everyone else's. We should thank them for reminding us how lucky we are. Oh, well, we are really, really happy that we can help. I am truly happy that I can help with my presence here, anyone in the NKT. So, okay, good. I'm really glad. So there is another Kelsang Wangden Kelsang, who actually recognizes, she says, or he says, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, the ones I know about personally went through very difficult experiences and in their deep pain looked for someone to blame. So some of us went through very difficult experiences. We couldn't make it in the NKT, and then we needed someone to blame for our failures, right? Unfortunately, because these survivors groups exist, a person who is hurting and blaming the tradition can easily come under their influence. When you are in pain and other people seem to understand, it gives you some relief from your feeling of isolation. So she's actually saying that these survivors groups are out there just to hook people in who have suffered in the NKT and brainwash them into complaining and speaking up against the tradition. I don't think that is what's happening here. Another Kelsang is saying very simply and incredibly practically, just don't worry about them. He says, please don't worry about criticism. Everybody's looking for peace and happiness. I know many people who have come to Manjushri, met Kadam Dharma, seen them happy, and so it doesn't really matter that these other people are unhappy and they are expressing specific issues and problems with the NKT and their specific experiences. It doesn't really matter because there are so many people who are happy and joyful, so, who cares? I have to sum up. This is what they're saying about us. Survivors are politically motivated hate groups, survivors are trolls, survivors have mental issues, they're angry and frustrated, survivors of worldly entertainment, forget them and move on, survivors are our enemies, survivors are Maras, survivors are jealous, survivors need someone to blame for their own delusions, survivors are shockingly hateful, survivors have their own experience, I've got mine, why focus on it? Survivors criticize the NKT simply because it didn't work for them. Survivors are a handful of disgruntled former Buddhist practitioners who just happen to land in the Kadampa tradition. Survivors are people who are prone to bandwagon thinking. Survivors are oversensitive. Survivors fail to accept the reality of the lower realms. I don't know. What that means. Is that a threat? Are you guys threatening us that we're going to get into the lower realms if we criticize the NKT. I've heard that before. I've heard that while I was involved in the NKT. You're going to get into the lower realms, hell realms. You're going to be reborn as an animal, whatever. Yeah, it's really scary. And finally, survivors treat the NKT like a former partner where the relationship didn't work out and now they are bitter. So basically, we are just angry, bitter. We're going to land in the lower realms and that's it. That's it. There's not one person who actually says, hey, let's have a look at what we have been doing. What do we have any sort of a safeguarding system? What can somebody do if there is some sort of an abuse going on in the center where they're at? Nobody's actually asking these questions. It's just, I got mine. I've got my experience, and because my experience is good, because I am happy, it follows that your experience must be also good. And if you're saying that your experience is not good, you are either lying, or you are mistaken, or you are deluded, or you are manipulated by other forces, or you are a Mara, or you are mentally sick. So this is actually, I think, important to mention here. This is very common in any group, not just the NKT, but it's a human thing. If I am part of some sort of a group and I have a good experience, and then somebody comes forward and says, I had a bad experience, then I'm just going to say, well, I don't understand why you had a bad experience. I have a really good experience here, and so I don't understand what you're saying, and I actually don't even care. You must be lying. You must be wrong. Or you must have some mental issues because, I'm having a really great time. And it is true that we perceive things differently. We may perceive the same situations differently. We're all different. Some of us are more sensitive, more vulnerable. Others are stronger. Whatever. There's going to be a lot of psychological reasons why one person might perceive something as something positive and the other one perceives it as negative. But that doesn't mean that there are no issues and there are no misconduct and misconduct issues and mistreatment issues and abuse issues in the NKT. And we have a lot of people, a lot of testimonies who have come forward over the years who have told us specific situations, specific issues that they have seen as problems in the NKT. And those issues have not been addressed really ever, except trying to whitewash them and explain them away, saying, oh yeah, well, it's not really true, it wasn't like that, and it's whatever. No one's actually coming forward from the NKT and saying, okay, let's have a look at this thing, let's have a look at that, let's change something here, let's become better as an organization or safer. Right? And this thing that I've got my experience, and and I've got my good experience, so your bad experience is irrelevant or untrue, is very typical. And this is what one of these researchers, Matthew Remski, coined the phrase about how this sort of dynamic works. So he says, appealing to perception while overlooking facts is one of the most effective ways to enable or obfuscate abuse and gaslight victims. The survivor is appealing to the enabler for validation, and the enabler must deflect that gaze with an impermeable mask, usually frozen in a smile. Yeah, we've heard that from some of our survivors who mentioned that frozen smile. It's kind of a weird thing, and I know that frozen smile from experience as well. It's important to understand that the enabler's narrative and sense of psychological cohesion depends on how the survivor responds. They really need the survivor to stand down, go silent, and ideally disappear. If the survivor speaks clearly and loudly, the enabler may have to reconsider their entire life and its meaning. I think that is the psychological reason why it is so difficult for people in the NKT to actually acknowledge that, yes, these things must have happened. These facts that these people are reporting must have occurred, and they are wrong. Because the people in the NKT who are using this I got mineism strategy, they have been there for too long. They have invested so much in the organization that it is virtually impossible for them to recognize or acknowledge the fact that the organization makes very, very, very serious and frequent mistakes. So continuing with this quote, Just imagine having to admit you were emotionally and financially committed to an abuser. Therefore, they can be highly motivated to be persuasive, to reach for every emotional button to punch. They will metabolize their own shame to provoke your guilt. They'll turn the aggressor into an object of vulnerable innocence. They will use the language of love to defend a crime and demand premature forgiveness. And then he follows Hannah Arendt. He said it might be as a form of propaganda that opens the door to indoctrination, because when someone emphasizes perception over fact, when they play up the controversy or mystery surrounding the abuser rather than focus on the abuse itself, they are actually softening people up for recruitment. So yes, please note that abuse, we in our group or survivors in their testimonies, they're talking about facts. This is what happened. This is what happened. This is what happened to me. This is what they said. This is what they did. This is what went down, right? Like, we're always talking about actions. We're always talking about what actually happened. And they are always focusing on us as people. And like I said before, and I gave this long list, we are trolls, we are disgruntled people, we are emotionally unstable, we are mentally sick or whatever. So it's like focusing on the person, not what the person is saying, because it is basically too painful for these NKT members to actually look at what we are saying. Right? Like, what are we saying here? What am I talking about when I'm talking about my past experience? And it's kind of a pity, because they could actually learn so much from us and make their organization better. I mean, okay, I don't know if it's very easy to make the NKT turn it into a truly good organization, because it's got its basic systemic issues that are very difficult to change. But at least maybe fewer people would suffer so much in the centers, right? Like, maybe there would be less suffering created in the centers, and eventually fewer survivors who come out and tell their stories. So it could be a win-win, actually. But it just seems that they are unable to do that, and they rather would just focus on the survivors as a group of people and take that group apart as without any reason to exist. And so I'm going to stop here. This is all I wanted to say about this. This was the two sides of the survivor coin. And thank you very much for your attention again. And please like and subscribe to our channel. Like the video if you have liked it. And thank you very much.